It is officially the day that we've been looking for, the day that the commercials hopefully end, and we can maybe get on with life, however that may be. It is Tuesday morning, Election Day in the United States, and I originally thought, well, I'll just wait till tomorrow and I will, maybe have a little bit of information and can make some kind of statement. And then I decided that, the word is His word, no matter who sits in what office. Today in the United States, we'll be going through the process of an election. Some would call it a selection, and maybe that has been in years past. Maybe it is in every election. In fact, maybe the word selection is one that is more appropriate to this day, but not from the earthly realm. In the book of Daniel, as the visions, the revelations of a return from exile are being given to Daniel, there is a verse, chapter 2, starting verse 20. It says, Daniel prays this prayer: "Blessed be the name of Elohim, from eternity past to eternity future. For wisdom and power are His alone. He brings the changes of seasons and times. He installs and disposes kings." Yes, there is a selection process that is happening on this day, November 5th of 2024. But don't be surprised if this ends up becoming a day that it is a selection from the heavenly realm, not the earthly realm. And with that, I have great peace, because, as I said, His word is His word. He will not, as a friend of mine just posted on Facebook a meme, he is not up in the heavenly realm today pacing. He is not nervous. He is still seated upon a throne. And what we have to figure out is, in the coming days, whoever is selected for this office, will we embrace the day that we have been given, or will we try to escape that day? I'll probably be teaching on that sometime in the future. All right, with that, let's go to the Word, which is His word, no matter who is in the White House or whatever house it may be. All right, this is a place that the Torah portions are coming at us so fast. We go through from Adam and Eve to Noah, and now here's Abraham all of a sudden on the scene. Thousands of years, hundreds of years have passed, and we've done this in this is our third week. So it says in chapter 12, verse 1, Lech Lecha is the title of the Torah portion, and it says, "Get yourself out." Now, to read the verse, it says, now, Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh said to Avram, "Get yourself out of your country, away from your kinsmen, away from your father's house, and go to a land that I am going to I am going to allow you to perceive, not only with your physical eyes, but with your spiritual man, this land that I'm going to give you." It goes on to say, "I will make you a great nation." We've read that, we've quoted that verse so many times. But the word here is that it has many, many meanings. It means go, it means come out. In Southern vernacular, it would be like, scram. Okay, scram from this land to a place I'm going to show you. It is kind of a dichotomy of a word for us today. For as in Israel today, we see those that are making Aliyah since 1948, by the way, is the year from creation. It is believed that Avram was born the year 1948. So in our Gregorian calendar, we see the nation of Israel born 1948. So there are some similarities. The Father he works through kind of a crazy term here, but he actually works through the paganism and the leaders that he has installed. He works through things that in our minds, it's kind of, or at least in my mind, it is at times difficult to fathom. So if a person today can prove their Jewish identity, which, by the way, Abram, is not the father of the Jewish nation. We would understand that as he is the father of the what would later be called the Hebrew nation. I mean, he was not told that what that nation was going to be called any more than Adam was told who was in his loins in that day. Same with Noah. He's not told these things. But in the seed of Abram is a nation that would be called the Hebrews and would also be called Israel. Well, we are in this place right now that we can't, most of us, I cannot prove a Jewish identity to make Aliyah to Israel. I'm here in this land that I was born in, and I'm very thankful that I was born here as opposed to a lot of other places in the world. Now we're told in the book of Jeremiah 29, it says in verse 7, and you can go read the context of this, but it says, seek the welfare of the city to which I have caused you to go in exile. The word there is find shalom. Now the only way that I feel we can find shalom is to remain connected. All right, there are those that believe that we should just disconnect from this place that we're in, and if that's, I'm not judging anyone here, but I don't get that. I believe that we should be connected, we should be a blessing, we should be, as Yeshua would say, a light. All right, if we're here in exile and we have the light of the Creator in us, but we're not allowing that light to shine through us, then what good is it that He gave us the light in the first place? So the balancing act here is to understand that I am to seek the welfare, I am to be a part of the land of exile, but it is to remain exile. In our minds, it is to be a place of exile. It's a temporary home, a temporary dwelling that one day we will all of us that are, I believe, are following the God, the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, Yaakov, we will go home. As many songs have been sang, including one of my favorites from the Exodus Road Band, to give them a little bit of a commercial message there. So Abram is a man of his life is complex. So much has been talked about of his father, of how they came out of Tehran, of Ur of the Chaldees. And it's, he is, I don't really want to go to that place this week, but instead kind of focus on the man and the purpose, the why of leaving exile. He was told, get out of your country, away from your family, and go to a land that I am going to show you. Simply put, Abram, there is a revelation that I have for you of me that I cannot give you in this place. I cannot reveal myself in the way that I desire to reveal myself in this place of Ur, this place of Babylon, this place of mixture. Now, the thought that he is in that place of mixture, he's being called out of it. Again, most of us cannot physically get out of this. I met some people years ago, and they said, well, we're leaving the United States. We're moving to Chile. I said, well, you're going to find Babylon there. You're going to find a place of mixture there. Oh, no, no, no. They got there just in time for a massive volcano. Ended up, I think, moving back because Babylon is Babylon. All right, we've gone from the October 31st holiday, and now we're going to the December 25th holiday, and that'll be followed by the March, April, May holiday. And it doesn't matter where you go, you're going to find this mixture. But that does not mean that we have to be involved in that mixture. Though I may not be able to separate myself physically, I can, however, desire and strive to separate myself spiritually, emotionally, all right? Let me say that word again. Emotionally, I can separate myself to a point from the events that are going on around me. So he's a man, he's a man that is, we think of him as his hospitality toward the three angels, messengers that came to him. He's a man of intercession, which we will be seeing in his life in the next Torah portion. I find it interesting that we're in this day of the elections in the United States is right between, is the Torah portion between the flood and Sodom and Gomorrah. All right, we'll just have to figure out what that means in the end. But I want to take a different aspect of Abram's life, and that is summed up with the word stability. This is a man who, in his walk, is, I see, stable. Now, is his walk perfect? I'll get to that in a few moments. In order for me to kind of prove that point out, this past weekend, Kathy and I went down to see some friends in North Florida, the place that I pastored congregation for 6 years. Incredible time. We had some wonderful events, things that we did. Just renewed relationships with people. Just absolutely incredible time. But while we were there, we did something on Shabbat, which is kind of a typical thing for me, and they have to all endure it because they end up having to hear the same stories over and over again and act like they haven't heard them. But okay. We went to the cemetery, in which my mother of blessed memory, my grandmother, and most of my family, a lot of my family on my mother's side, are buried there in the Sapchapi Cemetery. I just do that to pay my respects. And so we did that, and we just were walking around the cemetery. And one of the things that I love to do is to read epitaphs, because the epitaph is really what someone else said. It's like a biography. Okay, you can write an autobiography of your life, but that may be true. It may be embellished. You may leave some things out along the way. But when you come to the end and someone writes a biography of you, that was what they saw. And so an epitaph is what someone else, the summary of your life in the mind of someone that you felt was a loved one. And so we're walking around and we're reading these epitaphs, and it dawned on me that there's an epitaph that the Almighty Himself wrote regarding the person of Abraham. It's in Hebrews chapter 11. If you want to go over here. I'm going to read the epitaph of Abraham, as written by through the inspiration of the Ruach HaKodesh, the one that had called him by name and the one that directed him and walked with him all of the days of his life. The epitaph is this, in chapter 11 of Hebrews, verse 8. By faith, or by trusting, Abraham obeyed after being called to go out to a place which Elohim would give him as a possession. Indeed, he went out without knowing where he was going. By trusting, he lived as a temporary resident in the land of promise, as if it were not his, staying in tents with Isaac and Yaakov, who were to receive what was promised along with him. For he was looking forward to a city with permanent foundations, of which the architect and builder is Elohim. By trusting, he received potency to father a child, even when he was past the age for it, as was Sarah herself, because he regarded the one who had made the promise as trustworthy. Therefore, this one man, who was virtually dead, fathered descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky, and as countless as the grains of the sand on the seashore. Abraham, the man of stability. He wasn't a man of perfection. You know, I was just, in fact, crazy. I was just cleaning off my dresser. I looked at it. I thought, you know, that looks a little really tacky. It looks like it needs to be cleaned off. So I did, and I saw that I had a coin there, which was a piece of silver, and on that silver it says 99.9% pure. Okay, and I'm thinking it's kind of like you look at a can of Lysol, clean. It kills 99.9% of germs. What is that germ that not even Lysol can kill? I don't know. What is that is left? Why is it that you cannot state that a silver bar, a silver coin, is not 100% pure? What is that 99.9% that we just can't figure out how to get that little impurity out of there? Because I believe that that slight impurity is actually a part of the coin, which makes it as valuable as it is. Let me turn this into each of us. The word, once again, of tamim. Okay, King Jimmy translated it as perfect, which has caused so much condemnation over people through the years. I can't be perfect. Okay, God knows, literally, He knows that I will never upon this earth, in this realm, in this body, reach a place of perfection. Anybody that hangs out with me for a little while understands that's truth. So that 99.9% is a reference to the word not perfection, but wholeheartedness, or tamim. Here's a question. Is the impurity built in for a purpose? If everything that the Almighty has created, has brought forth on this earth, if everything has purpose, then the 0.1% of impurity has a purpose. And the fact that He would leave us in a perfectly imperfect or an imperfectly perfect place, whichever one you want to go with, is that little bit of impurity, which is, I'm going to define that as the ability to choose. The ability to choose is our imperfection, which brings us to a place of perfection in Him. For our purpose, which is to worship Him, which is to choose worship, which is to choose is to have the ability to choose, that little bit of imperfection is what He is, if you would, baked into the cake in order to make us into a perfect creation for Him. So when I choose to obey, when I choose to worship, if He was to remove that place of choice, it may appear that I was more perfect in my being, but I would not be perfect in my purpose. The ability to choose, the imperfection that is placed into us, brings us to a place of perfection of our purpose unto Him. Now, He takes him to Elon Moreh, which I've gone to many times. I've recorded videos from there. The first thing that He gives unto Avram, I keep wanting to call him Avraham, he's Avram right now. The first thing that He does with Avram is He gives him a revelation of the importance of the land. Now, the words "the land," you and I would not argue over what those words mean, I would imagine. You know, there are those out there that can't figure out what the words "the land" mean, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. But here's a thought for you, a little bit of homework. As you go through this, from this Torah portion on, underline or note how many times the words "the land" is used. So the inheritance, what does He do? The Almighty brings Abram to a place in which he can perceive. Ray, the word see, to perceive not just with our vision, but with our being. He brings him to a place that he can perceive the inheritance. He can perceive the kingdom. He can perceive that which is in the future. He looked to a kingdom whose builder and maker was Elohim. I personally believe that at this point, and also at the binding of Isaac, that he was probably shown a vision of the kingdom to come. And therefore, he locked in on that vision. Stability. What kept Abram stable in his walk? Through his imperfections, through his what seems like bad choices, what brought him through was a vision of his inheritance and what that inheritance would eventually be, the kingdom upon this earth. Now consider that there's some people that are alive during the time that of our introduction to Abram. In my estimation, it would have been unlikely that Abram would have met these men in Ur of the Chaldees, in Babylon, in the place of mixture. But he was brought to, please give me a little license here, he was brought to the place of modern day Israel, Canaan, the place of inheritance, possibly to meet people that were also walking in a tamim, wholehearted attitude, one of them being Noah. I was looking back at the references here, and Noah was actually, or Abram, was 58 years old when Noah died. Now, if Noah is still alive, and Abram is in Ur of the Chaldees, is in the area which is the Tower of Babel, then he would have been told by others about this man, their ancestor, who had built the ark, and it had saved them through the time of the flood. Now, Noah, where is he at? He's somewhere in that general area, in what we would refer to as the Middle East, the area of the Mount of Ararat. Some believe it's up in Turkey. There's all kinds of different. I'm not trying to get into the geography of that, but do you think that there's a possibility that Abram would have tried to find this man? I do. In fact, there are rabbinic writings that Shem, the son of Noah, was actually a preacher of righteousness, that he carried on the ministry, if you would, of his father, and set up houses of learning the Torah, learning that which was given to them from the tree of life, and it could have actually been in Jerusalem. Okay? Now, Shem would outlive Abram. Shem would outlive Abram. I won't go into all the dates here, but that's the genealogy. I've got a chart over on my wall, and it shows where these people were, and the possibility that they would have known one another. So, with all that said, well, let me go on, then I'll get back to that, okay? So just kind of set that aside. Well, then we have this other person on the scene. His name is Lot, or Lot. Now, if we look at his name means covering or envelope. The root word goes back to the book of Isaiah. In Isaiah chapter 25, pardon me, I didn't mark this one to turn to it really fast. But in Isaiah chapter 25, we're going to go to verse 7, and it says, or verse 6, on this mountain, Adonai Sabaoth will make for all peoples a feast of rich food and superb wines, delicious rich food and superb elegant wines. On this mountain he will destroy the veil which covers the face of all peoples, the veil enshrouding all the nations. The word there is Lot. So Lot is a covering. It is as if Avram is in an envelope during the time that Lot is with him. It's like, you remember now we have those privacy envelopes, but years ago when we didn't have to be concerned so much about somebody, this is really ancient, mailing a check to someone and having it stolen. Okay, now we don't do that anymore, I know, but there was a time, if I got any young people that are listening to me, there was an ancient day, long, long ago, that your parents would sit down at a desk, such as I have. They would open the drawer, such as I have. They would take out a checkbook, and on that check, on that piece of paper, would write the person's name, the date, the amount that they were going to give to that person, and they would sign it. They would do something really crazy. They would take then an envelope like this. They would open the envelope, place the check in there, address it, put a stamp, which cost at that time a lot less than it does now, and they would put it in a box. And that would go through, and would be sent to a person on the other end. I know, this is totally primitive, almost back to caveman days, right? Now, because of the envelope being thin, somebody could look at it and see the check through it. Abram, and I guess that if the check had eyes, it could see out. But it was like through a veil. So we could get into the argument of whether Abram was to take Lot with him or not. I can see both sides of this. There may have been responsibilities. See, the scripture doesn't tell us everything. The scripture tells us, the scripture is not trying to teach us history like you learned in school. The scripture is teaching us the events that happened regarding the covenant of Genesis chapter 3, verse 15. Every verse in scripture is about that covenant and it being established on this earth. It is not a history lesson so much. We may learn history because of that, but it is a record of that covenant being established in person after person after person, and then being brought forth. That's why I can say that there is a probability that Abram knew Noah, knew Shem, because the covenant is being passed on from generation to generation. So as long as Lot is in the picture, it is as if Abram is seeing, but through a veil. Now, in chapter 13, we read about the argument between the servants of Abram and the servants of Lot. The purpose of the argument is not so much about land, it's not about possessions, it's not about the argument, it's about the covenant. It's about Abram being able to see clearly. And so Lot must be removed from Abram's life in order for him to see clearly, and therefore the covenant going forth. Now when I can go there for just a second. There are times in which the Almighty will remove someone from a relationship. He will remove someone from our lives in order for the covenant to be established. That doesn't mean that if somebody is removed from your life that you're right. That you now have, I was right in this situation. No, when we see Paul and John Mark having this argument, they came back together later on. Why? For the purpose of the covenant to be established. We see Paul, and Kepha, Peter, having disagreements. Why? So that the covenant can be introduced to the Goyim, the Gentiles. So just because someone is taken out of your life, that doesn't mean that we should stand up and go, well, hey, I've been vindicated in this. No, it may mean that there's a greater purpose in that separation for a time period. Now, Lot looks out, as we read in chapter 13. He looks out over the plains of Sodom and Gomorrah, the plains of the Yarden, and he says this, the land, where am I looking at? Verse 10, chapter 13, verse 10. Lot looked up and saw the whole plain of the Yarden, as well watered everywhere before Yudevavhe destroys Sodom and Gomorrah, like the garden of Adonai, like the land of Egypt in the direction of Zoar. Now, anybody that's been to Israel or has seen a picture of the Dead Sea, It looked like the land it looked like the Garden of Eden? Really? I mean, right now, in order to get a bush to grow, you've got to go through all kinds of different aspects. We planted some trees down at Tamar, and we had to bring dirt in, elevate that dirt, and put the tree in so that the tree could get established into the non-salt dirt before it actually put its roots down into something else. It had to be matured until it could go down there, because if not, it would be toxic and actually kill that plant, that tree. And so to think that in that day it looked like the Garden of Eden is just a total. I mean, I have a hard time even trying to picture that one. What's the story we'll see in the Torah portion? Was it next week's Torah portion? The destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. So Sodom and Gomorrah, the cities of the plains, they go from fruitfulness to barren. They go from this beautiful garden to not able to grow anything, which tells us this: sin destroys fruitfulness. Sin destroys fruitfulness. Okay, it's sin, the consequences of sin. It's not, I mean, the act may be an abomination, but what really is sin all about? When we act upon that impurity that's in us for the wrong cause, then what happens? We become unfruitful. So sin, going against him, affects our relationship to him. It is I mean, anybody that's been married, you've had friends, you know that, you do something, and what is the consequences? It destroys or injures the relationship between two people. Sin injures and can destroy our relation with our Creator. It also, sin makes us unfruitful. We see what is going on with the selection right now. I'm just gonna kind of code this one. This selection is really coming down to one choice for a person to make. I believe that choice is sinful. And what is the result of that choice is unfruitfulness. The choices that people are making in this world today are causing them to be unfruitful. I was talking with someone about it just a couple days ago, that if you look at a map of Africa, northern Africa, many years ago, there's a small amount of desert, but mostly it's green. And if you look at what has happened in as Islam has taken over those areas, on a map it is gone from green to brown, unfruitful. We were talking about a meme that was out I think it was a month or so ago, of they looked at they had pictures of women in these different, Persia and various places, and how these women, the dress, I mean, it put Americans to shame, which I guess I could have come up with a better one than that. That doesn't take much today. But it was, I mean, the way that they were dressing with these jewels and the fabrics and the beauty was just, it was astonishing. But now those countries have been taken over by Islam. The same woman that was dressing in a way that was just beautiful is now in a burqa. Is now, you can't see her face even because of the veil that is before her eyes. It's a gray or a black or a dingy or a dark, something about darkness. Why? Because it is the sin that is a different religion, quote unquote, has destroyed the fruitfulness of the society. Now, going on, in chapter 14, we see that after Abram goes through this whole thing with Lot, Lot goes down to Sodom and Gomorrah. He goes up to the mountains, which is the area of Judea, all right, and he meets a guy named Melchizedek. There are many that believe, and I tend to agree with this also, that this is Shem. This is the son of Noah. As we look at the covenant, everything goes back to the covenant. Why is Enoch, what is it, the eighth? I think it is the eighth. He's not the eighth in genealogy, but he's the eighth of, and please don't quote me the number there, I think it's eighth, in accepting the covenant that was promised. He embracing the covenant of Genesis 3:15, he was the eighth one to embrace that. That goes on to Noah, and the one of his sons who embraced that covenant is Shem, who would have been walking as a king and a priest. Melchizedek, king of Shalem, which is now Jerusalem. Okay, this is what this man was. So he comes down to the area, which, by the way, is now what we would see somewhere along this area of what is termed as the Qumran community, where the Dead Sea Scrolls were buried. There's a lot of teaching on that today, not the purpose of this week's Torah portion. So Melchizedek, brings bread and wine, and he shares this with Abram. In a manner of speaking, offering the covenant to Abram. The drinking of wine, the sharing of bread, go over to the Gospels, okay, put it all together. The one who is after the order of Melchizedek, which is out of the book of Hebrews. Shem is a picture of one who is both a priest and a king, who would share bread and wine. Think of this. Is it possible that this is on the day that would later be called Passover? This was on the day of the killing of the animal in the garden. A little speculation, but it makes sense to me. So it says that he blessed him. Blessed be Avram by Elion, maker of heaven and earth, and blessed be Elion, who handed your enemies over to you. So his wise choices brought forth blessing. That impurity that is built into us is the ability to make a choice that brings forth blessing or a choice that brings forth curses. Deuteronomy 28. It is our choice. If you will do this, you will walk in blessing. If you do not do this, you will walk in curses. Okay? And today, modern religion has said, oh, that's all done away with. Well, I would like to gently say that's a bunch of hooey, okay? The ability for us to choose is still a part of the process so that we can actually enter into worship. Now, not only did his obedience and his right choices bring forth blessing, it also brought forth an ability and opportunity to be a blessing. Avram gave him a tenth of everything. Now, I don't see that if this is Shem, if the guy is a priest and king of Shalem, I'm not thinking that he needs anything. He's probably not living in poverty. But Avram gives him a tenth of everything that he has. Why? Because it is now Avram's opportunity to be a blessing. Our choices, our good choices, will bring blessing for the purpose of being a blessing. Running out of time. Chapter 15 is the promise of a son. We see then a little help from Hagar, Sarah with her, hey, and this you got to understand, this is some things that are in that culture of the day, all right? We look at it from a sexual aspect. Their life, I'm not saying it was right, but this was in the culture of the day. Okay, it's Abram came out of Ur of the Chaldees, yes, but some of the Ur of the Chaldees came out with him and his wife. I'm not saying this was a right choice, but there are some cultural things that kind of that bring forth the reasoning for all of this. But in the end, it's a bad choice. In fact, here we are thousands of years later, still fighting a war in Israel, in the land, and a lot of this can be tied back to the bad choice of Abram. If you want to give a great blessing and gift to your children and grandchildren and generations to come, make the right choices. Make godly choices today, and it will be in... I was, again, talking to friends this week, talking about our children, our grandchildren. Some of them realize it, some of them don't. They've been given incredible favor. Why? Was it they're so smart? Well, they had good genes, maybe, yes. But no, it was because we had passed on favor. You and I have the ability to pass on favor into a generation, and that favor will be used in the end. I firmly believe this. That favor will then be used to bring that generation into relationship with the Almighty. Chapter 17, it talks about that his promises will prevail. We live in a day that the conflict in the election day in America, the conflict in Israel, Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, this is all a conflict about will his promises come forth or not? Does the creator of the universe have the ability to bring forth his promises, or will the enemy, who is revealed in Isaiah chapter 14, the one who seeks to set up his throne upon the throne of the Almighty, whose promises will prevail in our day? Well, just to give you a hint, verse 21 says, "But I will establish my covenant with Isaac, whom Sarah will bear to you at this time next year." He is not a man. that he should lie. His promises are coming forth. And tonight, as this will go out, and this is history by the time, probably, I don't know, this history by the time it actually is released on Thursday. No matter the outcome of the election, it was a selection. We just have to figure out how to embrace the consequences either way. Probably be talking about that in coming weeks a little bit. So until then, Shavua Tov, have a blessed, prosperous week. Shabbat Shalom. Prior to that, I guess, I got a little bit of travel, not jet lag, travel lag from yesterday. Had to drive to Atlanta. So let me try that again. Shabbat Shalom, Shavua Tov, and Bezrat Hashem, God willing. See you again next week. Until then, no matter who's in what house, you be strong.
Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmarecha. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichunecha. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom.